I want to talk about this tennis ball debate or tennis ball issue where the balls have been changed or the balls fluff up, or I should say, or the balls fluff up and the players are complaining about them, because this is actually why players hate quick start, why they hate play and stay, why they hate the slower balls, because this is what happens when you play with the slower balls. Talking about the red ball, especially the orange ball, and even the green ball. And you think of just think the yellow ball in general, and the balls go dead. You know, sometimes when you're beginning and you're learning, it's not a big deal. But once you become a player, you've been playing for a long time, you don't want to play with dead balls. It's annoying. But the quick start balls are different. They're a little bit liver. They do have a liveness to them when they're new. But what the players are referring to, this is what happens with, let's talk about the orange ball. And players will complain. And he's talking about arm issues, because you have to make a major change. You really have to dial in on the ball, and you have to focus more on placement and spins and not so much just mindless hitting. You're not going to get or I shouldn't say you're not going to, but you might not get that good feeling where you can just swing away at every ball. It just doesn't work like that. And I think that's what they're referring to on the tour when the balls fluff up. But think about that. The balls fluffing up. They're changing the balls every 4 games? I don't know what it is exactly. It's like 3, 4, 5 games. And they're still complaining about the balls fluffing up. Imagine that. And this is what the players on tour, especially the top players, who take Zverev, for example, they don't have to change a thing. They just go through their routine, play their standard tennis it's almost like, I don't even think they think about it. They just show up to the match, go through their routine and play their routine match. And they continue to have the success that they have. And Zverev is an example of that. And they wouldn't want to use different balls or slower court surfaces, not to a point where it's going to affect their game and have to change it. The players that aren't, and the players that are having arm issues, etc., they are, in my opinion, still learning, and this is going to be an enforced lesson upon them if this continues. And they can embrace it and learn, or they can be stubborn and fight it and not learn. This is also why players hate slow courts. A majority of players, tennis players, not just pro players, just a majority of tennis players do not like slower courts. Talking about clay courts, but not just clay courts, but slower hard courts as well. And another reason why they don't like the slower balls or the slower courts is because they have to adjust their form, or as most people know it, as their technique. See, when the balls are moving slower with different spins and different variations and speeds, you can't just you're not going to have the same exact technique. It has to be different. And that's another thing with players. They don't want to do that. They don't think that that's real. They think that's a bad thing. And that's what the faster courts are teaching them. Because when the faster courts, faster balls are in play, you almost are getting closer to a very, very similar or same way of hitting every time. But as soon as the ball goes slower, as soon as the courts are slower, that starts to change. And that's what they also, in their minds, they have this fixation. They have this belief that this is the way tennis is played, because a majority of tennis courts are actually faster. It's at least speaking here in the United States, you have the indoor courts, which is probably at least half of the United States or people are playing indoor courts half the year. They're playing on a lot of park courts, high school courts, and even club courts as well. They're faster, hard courts. So this is what they're used to. This is why I call it a belief. And a little bit about that and what exactly I mean by that. For example, you may have to hit flat balls. You may have to hit flat forehands as opposed to the same spinny forehand that you hit. And I'm talking about when the balls get slower, the The courts get slower in order to play winners. In order to play to targets effectively and get to the net, you have to play flatter. And that's a big change in technique for these players that they are not equipped to do, and or they don't want to do.